Hello students, and welcome to Chapter 3, which is on ratios and rates. Our first lesson in Chapter 3, Lesson 3.1b, is going to focus on ratios. By the end of today's lesson, you will be able to write, simplify, and draw ratios. In order to study ratios, it's helpful for us to know what a ratio is. A ratio is a comparison of two quantities using division. So what that means is we are comparing two different numbers by means of division. There are three different ways to write ratios. The first form that you are going to see, which is the most common form, is a fraction. So if I was talking about a ratio of 2 to 3 in fraction form, that would be written as 2/3. The next format that we can write our ratios in is what's called the colon format, and that's where we use a colon, which is these two dots, just like I have up here. And if I was going to write 2/3 as a ratio using the colon, I would have 2 colon and then 3. And then the last format that we can write ratios in is words. So writing it out in a full manner using our words. So we would say 2 to 3. So the ratio of 2 to 3. The most common one you're going to see is fractions, and that's the one we are going to use throughout this lesson. But I just wanted you to be aware that the colon and the words format mean the same thing. So the first thing we're going to talk about is writing a ratio. When we are writing a ratio, we have to pay attention to what the question asks. So there's two ways this question could be asked. The first question, or the first possible option, would be to write the ratio of blue to green. That means it wants the answer for blue first, aka in the numerator, and the green second, aka in the denominator. So if I was going to write this ratio as blue to green, I would count 1, 2, 3, 4 blues, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 greens. So the ratio of blue to green would be 4/5. Let's get that 5 a little bit more clear. So the ratio of blue to green is 4/5. The other question that they could ask you for this setup would be to write the ratio of green to blue. So now it wants the number for green in the numerator. So our answer for this one would be 5/4. You do not simplify improper fractions when you are talking about ratios. You leave it as the improper fraction. So you would not change it into 1 and 1/4. We do not want mixed numbers. You leave them as an improper fraction. So go ahead and try this one on your own to write the ratio of blue to green. Our answer here would be 5/8 because there are 5 blue circles and 8 green circles. The next thing we're going to talk about is simplifying ratios. Simplifying ratios works the same as simplifying fractions. So first, we'll go over this again. We're going to write the ratio of blue to green. So we're going to write the ratio of blue to green, and we're going to start that with 1, 2, 3, 4 blues, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 greens. But now, 4 and 6 can both be divided by 2, so you would simplify your fraction then by doing 4 divided by 2, which gives you 2, and 6 divided by 2, which gives you 3. So your simplified ratio is 2 to 3. So what that means is for every 2 blue circles, there's going to be 3 green circles. And again, every 2 blue circles, there's 3 green circles. And that ratio, that pattern would hold if we continued. So the simplified version makes it so that we're dealing with smaller numbers. Go ahead and write this simplified ratio of blue to green for this problem. So we start with 6 blues and 10 greens. Again, both of those can be divided by 2. So our final simplified ratio is 3 to 5. That means for every 3 blues, there's 5 greens. 3 more blues, 5 more greens. Another thing we can use ratios for is for answering word problems. So they give us this chart where we're talking about pets and the number of pets that are sold. So our first question is, what is the ratio of cats to total pets sold? So we want to make sure we are using our information that they give us in the problem to help us answer. When I'm reading the sentence, the first thing that it talks about is cats. So I know that cats is going to help me answer this information. Since cats comes first in the problem, we're going to have cats as our numerator of our ratio. Then it wants the total number of pets. Remember that total means addition. So I'm going to do 10 plus 9, which is 19, plus 8, which is 27, plus 5, which gives us a total answer of 32 pets. And since that's our second thing mentioned, that's going to be our denominator. Now I need to look at my ratio, and I can simplify this because 8 and 32 can both be divided by 8. So your final answer is 1 over 4. So what that means is 1 out of every 4 pets sold is going to be a cat. We can also use this to answer questions dealing with smaller groups. So our second question is, what is the ratio of gerbils sold? So we're looking at gerbils compared to birds sold. So our first number, our gerbils, is going to be our numerator. That's 5. And then our denominator is our birds, and that's 10. Again, we can reduce our ratio by dividing both of these by 5. And what that gives me is 1 over 2. So that means there is 1 gerbil sold for every 2 birds sold. I want you to go ahead and try this one on your own, answering what is the ratio of cats to birds that are sold. So in this case, we start with 8 over 10. Both of those can be divided by 2. And when I do that, I get a final answer of 4 over 5. So for every 4 cats sold, there are 5 birds sold. Last thing we're going to look at is drawing out ratios. So divide 21 squares into 2 groups at a 2 to 5 ratio. So the first thing that's important is we want 2 groups. So I'm going to call it group 1 and group 2. And then I'm going to just split it down the middle so that I know what is in each group. Now they give us the ratio this time. So they want 2 in the first group and 5 in the second group. So I'm going to put 2 of these blue squares in the first group, and when I do that, that means I need to put 5 red squares into the second group. So obviously right now I'm just dragging these squares, but when you do this on your own, you're going to be drawing the shapes. So far I have 1, 2 in the first group and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the second group. So far I have 7 squares. That doesn't get me up to 21. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to add 2 more to group 1 and 5 more to group 2. And if I count, that adds another 7 squares, so I'm up to 14 total squares. still doesn't get me to 21. So I'm going to add another 2 to group 1 and another 5 to group 2. And when I count that, adding another 7, that gets me to 21. So then the final thing you would do to write out your answer is to say, okay, so group 1 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And group 2 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. All right, I want you to go ahead and try this on your own, drawing the circles onto your paper. When you type the answer into Edpuzzle, I want you to type it in so that it'll say group 1 equals, and then put your answer for group 1. And then you'll also type in, so group 1 equals, and then you'll put your number, so we'll just say 72. And then you'll say, comma, group 2 equals, and then you'll type your number for group 2. So go ahead and try this one on your own. So as we add, it's 2 green circles into the first part, 4 orange circles into the second part, and we repeat that pattern until we get to 24. So group 1 should have equaled 8, and group 2 should have equaled 16. If you have any questions about this or anything else from the lesson, please feel free to reach out and let me know.